Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. My eyes have melted as I stare at multiple screens, trying to keep track of all the motorsport and watch all the football as well. It's been a busy weekend for me. Loads of motorsport to cover here today, including IndyCar, Indy NXT, Formula Regional America IMSA, and NASCAR from America, Formula 2, 3 and F1 Academy from Spain, Super Formula from Japan, Formula Regional Europe, Euro Formula and GB3 from Hungary, British GT from Spa, and the British Touring Cars from Britain. We'll go over all the action and main talking points and look at my predictions from last week. I have already talked about the Formula 1 in this video, so check that out as well. And let's jump into this look at last weekend's motorsport. So we begin with IndyCar from the wonderful Laguna Seca.
IndyCar at Laguna Seca. And this will be Colton Herta's first win since Indianapolis in 2022. He's driving well and has been incredibly unlucky, but it's time for him to hit the top again, and he has won at this track twice previously. Penske and Chip Ganassi will be there as well, but Terry Pourchaire will not. He's been ditched by McLaren in favour of Nolan Siegel. A returning David Malukas will get a top 10 for Meyer Shank as well. Agustin Canapino will get taken out by Rinus VeeKay, and his fans will get all but hurt again. And Stingray Robb will briefly race in the top 5.
I said Colton Herta would win, and he did start in the top 4, so the pace was there. It was a battle of strategies. Colton Herta led the 4 stoppers, whilst Alex Palou led the 3 stoppers, and they went head to head with 30 to go. Very few crashes in this race. Luca Giotto hit the wall hard to bring out the first yellow. We had a moment for Nolan Siegel as well, and Scott Dixon had a scare in the pit lane. But by the end, Alex Palou looked comfortable until a moment between Christian Lundgaard and Marcus Armstrong brought out a caution, bringing Herta and Rossi back into play. Unfortunately, the restart was a complete mess. Scott McLaughlin spun after contact with teammate Will Power. Lundgaard took another exciting ride over the corkscrew, and I mean literally over the corkscrew. Then another big crash with 9 to go. Kevin Simpson and Graham Rahal collided hard. Once it restarted again, nothing could stop Alex Palou from winning. I was so close with Herta, just a couple of seconds in it. Joseph Newgarden went off on the last lap and lost a top 5 finish. But Romain Grosjean finished 4th, his best result of 2024. The championship looks like a three-way fight between Will Power, Alex Palou and Scott Dixon, with no one else being consistent enough. Indy NXT had 2 races from Laguna Seca alongside IndyCar. Jamie Chadwick was coming off the back of a historic win at Road America. Could she keep up her good run of form here? Well, she was starting much further back, so it was always going to be tricky.
Indy NXT, and after the historic win for Jamie Chadwick at Road America, I think she'll be up and around the top places again. But with no Nolan Siegel and Jacob Abel coming off the back of a poor result at Road America, Lewis Foster will win and take the championship lead. Caio Collet and Mars Rowe will fight for 2nd and 3rd ahead of Chadwick. But there are 2 races, and I think we'll get a first win for Callum Hedges at this level, holding off a spirited Reece Gold for the win.
Lewis Foster led from Caio Collet and Jacob Abel. Our first incident was a yellow from the stranded Reece Gold, but this race was not very interesting. Lewis Foster dominated, and there was some late drama when Yuvan Sundaravi hit a back marker and lost the podium at the final corner. I think it's his faults. He had enough of a gap where he did not need to risk it, and he was lucky he finished 4th. On to race 2 with Foster on pole again. He dominated this race with Collet and Abel behind. A few drivers got into trouble at the end of the race, especially James Rowe and Reece Gold, who made contact with Jacob Abel at the corkscrew. This would end up hurting Abel's championship after he was given a drive-through for the incident. Miles Rowe dropped back with issues also. Foster won again. Collet put in another great performance. Bryce Aaron got a podium, and Jamie Chadwick climbed to 6th in the standings. Foster has a gap behind him in the title race. Jacob Abel and Caio Collet his nearest challengers. IMSA and 6 hours of racing from Watkins Glen. All the classes in action here.
Porsche are the team to beat, and the 6 and 7 will finish 1 and 2. I'd like to see the returning Lamborghini Hypercar do well, but I don't have high expectations.
We had an early issue in LMP2 with the Aero Motorsport car getting involved with another and bringing out an early yellow. 20 minutes later, and another incident involving an LMP2, George Kurtz rudely nudging the Ferrari of Roberto Lacorte into the barrier and doing some big damage for our second yellow, and it was a long yellow as the barrier needed repairs. The Sean Creech Motorsport car crashed. That was yellow period number 3. Rain started to come down around the halfway point, but we got a big crash before that involving a Ford and an Aston Martin. That meant another incredibly long yellow. A couple of hours left and the rain really came down with several cars going off. Eventually the red flag came out and we got a 20-minute sprint to the end of the race. Felipe Nasr and Dane Cameron took the win. This was a messy race interrupted by poor weather, and now Porsche have a strong hand on the IMSA Championship for 2024.
Could be anyone, but why not Denny Hamlin? He's been on fire all year and would be challenging for the title if this was a normal series.
NASCAR from New Hampshire. Pretty dull NASCAR oval race. We got our first big incident at the end of stage 2. Kyle Busch and Noah Gragson made contact for the caution. Stage 3 was very stop-start with a few incidents. The race was made tricky with rain and NASCAR's on wet weather tyres. A few more crashes here and there, but Christopher Bell won pretty easily in the end ahead of Josh Berry and Chase Briscoe. A very boring NASCAR race. We end our time in America with 2 races of Formula Regional America from Mid-Ohio.
Formula Regional America's at Mid-Ohio. 2 wins for Patrick Woods-Tough and 1 for Ryan Sheehan as the series devolves in a 2-way fight between the two.
It's all about Ryan Sheehan and Patrick Woods-Tough. They are the class of the field. If Titus Sherlock was going to push himself into the title picture, then crashing in practice and missing both races is not the way to do it. Ryan Sheehan won both races and pulls a strong lead in the championship. The racing was nothing special. Formula 2 from Catalonia, and this was a fantastic race. Great start from Ritomo Miata to move into second place. Bortoleto pulled a great move around the outside of Juan Manuel Correa, and we got a great fight over the first half of the race between Andrea Kimi Antonelli and Isaac Hadjar. This race was about tyres and penalties. Miata finished second, but had 10 seconds added for track limits. Correa as well finished third, but was chucked off the podium. Victor Martins took his first win of a terrible 2024 so far. Kushmini second, and Paul Aaron extends his championship with third and pole for the feature. The feature started with a lot of drama. Antonelli had some kind of issue on the formation lap and started at the back. Then Victor Martins' bad luck returned and he exited the race at turn 1 after contact from Dennis Hauger, and that brought out an early safety car. This race should have been a slam dunk for Paul Aaron, a chance to really lay down a marker in the title race. He lost out to Jack Crawford in the pit stops and then went off the track and lost a few places. Massive shift in the championship. Both AIX cars were broke down. Durskin was first of the alternative runners, but both wouldn't make it to the end. This was the best race in Spain this weekend, a great battle between Franco Colapinto and Gabriel Bortoleto. It came down to tyre strategy. Kushmini and Juan Manuel Correa carved their way through the field on fresh softs and made up a lot of ground. Correa getting a first podium since he returned to this level. It was Jack Crawford who took the win. The title fight is between Paul Aaron and Isaac Hadjar, with the Estonian pulling a slight gap over the Frenchman. Formula 3, obviously also from Catalonia, and the home race for Campos. If I was Sami Megatunev, I'd start handing in CVs at his local WH Smiths, because I can imagine Trident not being too happy with how he took out his teammate Santiago Ramos at the first corner, removing him from first and second and out of the race. Forget sacking him, Trident might murder Sami Megatunev. That gave us a long early safety car. Nikita Bedrin and Callum Voisin also collided, and so 4 cars had to be removed. Once the race restarted, it was a good one with Mari Boyer leading from Alex Dunn. Unfortunately, we got another incident late between a charging Sebastian Montoya and points leader Gabriel Mini. Safety car to the end and a win for the Spaniard Mari Boyer in Spain for the Spanish Campos team. Great result too for Alex Dunn and Ollie Gerfer on the podium. On to the feature, Arvid Lindblad got past Christian Mansell. This was not a great race, not a lot of overtaking. Last couple of laps were good. Van Hopen and Stenson both got punctures on the final lap, but no one was near Arvid Lindblad. Leo Fornaroli had a good weekend when many of his main rivals struggled. He now leads the standings, but it's far too close to call right now. Our final races from Spain were the ladies of the F1 Academy. No wildcard entry this time, and I prefer it, as they have not really added anything to the series so far. Dorian Pan returned, but was in the middle of the grid and had a bad start. We got a first lap safety car in this race as well. Maya Rug and Amna Alkabaisi collided and ended the race in the gravel. This safety car went on far too long. 6 laps of 16 meant not much racing in this first race. Pretty dull race after that. Dorian Pan provided all the excitement by climbing to 8th. Abby Pulling won to no one's surprise. What may have surprised Abby Pulling was Chloe Chambers passing her at the start of race 2. Again, the majority of the excitement came from Dorian Pan climbing through the field. A first win for Chloe Chambers, a great result for the American, but Abby Pulling was second and still leads the championship. British touring cars from Alton Park. Tom Ingram started on pole and Ash Sutton was right next to him. Colin Turkington didn't get away from the start as his title challenge took another hit. Sutton and Ingram made contact a couple of times, but the Hyundai soon pulled a gap and took the win. Race 2 started with chaos. Adam Morgan and Tom Chilton spun and split the pack up. Josh Cook on the softs managed to go from 8th to the lead on the first lap, which was mega. Ash Sutton was given a black and orange flag for loose bodywork, the rules of which are still ridiculous in touring cars, but it did mean drama for the championship. Comfy win for Josh Cook, nearly 10 seconds clear of Ingram, the first Cook win for 2 years. 2/3 of race 3 were led by the Vauxhall pair, looking for the Marquis' first win since Jason Plato in 2019. Jake Hill eventually got past Taylor Smith and started chasing down Doble. More drama for Ash Sutton, a problem at the front of the car saw him out of the points again and losing the championship lead. Sadly, that first Vauxhall win for 5 years would not happen. Jake Hill passed Mikey Doble on the last lap, but both Vauxhalls were on the podium. Bad weekend for Turkington and Sutton, good weekend for Ingram and Hill, who are out in front in the championship. Dan Camish and Josh Cook also getting involved as the BTCC enters its summer break, and we wait to see if anything will happen in the driver market like the craziness we got last year.
British GT is at Spa, and we will see a win for one of the more European flavoured entries with more experience of the Spa-Francorchamps track, such as Maximilian Gertz and Kevin Say in the 2Cs Mercedes.
British GT was on holiday at sunny Spa-Francorchamps. It wasn't a holiday in the sun for some people, as several cars went off in a big way at the start of the race, and we eventually got a red flag. We got started with just over an hour left, so much for 2 hours of racing. The restarted race ran very smoothly. Unfortunately for Jonathan Adam and the Blackthorn Aston Martin, they dropped out of second place with an issue with 10 minutes to go. Maximilian Gertz and Kevin Say took the win, which I believe some incredibly handsome YouTubers said they would. But it's the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghinis first and second in the championship with only 4 races left. Now on to the rest of the single-seater racing from the weekend.
On to everything else, and there is a lot. Over to Japan for Super Formula at Sugo, and I think Sho Suboi is going to take a win here. It would be his first since 2020, but he is driving really well at the moment. That would bring him into title challenging form, as no one can really pull away in this series, although this is only the 3rd race. Ren Sato will get a podium here, another who has driven well in 2024, with Ayumu Iwasa stuck in between.
Sugo was incredibly wet and foggy and definitely not optimal conditions for a motor race. 5 laps behind the safety car to start, then the race began, but not for long. Kazuya Oshima had a big crash on his own before the race officially restarted, joining Naoki Yamamoto on the sidelines, who didn't make the start after a crash in the opening practice session. Senna Sakaguchi then crashed after the restart, and the red flags came out. No more racing from Super Formula this weekend. Tomoki Najiri was declared the winner and half points were given out. Ayumu Iwasa was second, ahead of Sho Suboi.
Formula Regional Europe from Hungary, and Ugo Ugochukwu will have his best race of 2024 and finish second in race 1 behind Tuka Tarpanen, whilst Noah Stromstead will win race 2 ahead of James Wharton and Alessandro Giusti. Rafael Kamara will finish off the podium for the first time in 2024 in race 2.
Formula Regional European continued at the Hungaroring. Rafael Kamara has dominated this series so far in 2024, but the racing was pretty dull here. Get used to me saying that about races at Hungary. It didn't get interesting till the final couple of laps when Zachary David and Brando Badoa got into things. That gave Tuka Tarpanen plenty of space to take another win. Race 2 went much the same way. Tuka Tarpanen led from a much improved Ugo Ugochukwu and Rafael Kamara. Still not a lot of overtaking, but we did get a safety car mid-race after Nicolas Lecorte took out Marta Garcia. Kamara and Ugochukwu collided at the restart and gifted Tarpanen an easy win, Ugochukwu dropping off the podium, but he had a much better weekend overall. 2 wins for Tarpanen, but Rafael Kamara still scored good points and still has the championship lead.
GB3 also happens to be in Hungary, and Timothy Katarczyk will take yet another win, with John Bennett winning in race 2 and James Headley in race 3.
GB3, also from Hungary, no Ugochukwu in this race as he was obviously busy. Not a whole lot of overtaking going on in these races either. First race was won by Gerard Shea. He dropped out of race 2 and let Lewis Sharp win. Arthur Rogon would win a fairly low-key final race, I believe his first GB3 win. Kaharczyk was DQ'd from race 2 and out of the points in race 3, so the championship is being led by Lewis Sharp, just ahead of William McIntyre.
Let's keep it simple and say Brad Benavides will win all 3.
Finally, Euro Formula, also from the Hungaroring. and only 6 cars this weekend. Brad Benavides won a very boring race 1. Fernando Barrichello spun at the start of race 2. How he made contact with someone in a race with only 6 cars is beyond me. It's not like there's a lot to hit. Francesco Simonazzi won race 2 and 3. The racing in Euro Formula from Hungary was exceptionally tedious to watch, but then all of the racing from Hungary was boring. Boring track, get rid of it. So that was all the motorsport action from the past weekend. A lot of races to cover, nearly 30, and a few were quite long. Race of the weekend has to be the IndyCar, which had a bit of everything. All the racing from Spain and Hungary was pretty poor, in all honesty. Plenty going on next weekend as well, with Formula 1 on our screens again with the Austrian Grand Prix, Formula 2 and 3 also, Formula E from Portland, USA, World Rally Championship from Poland, NASCAR from Nashville, 24 Hours of Spa, and Brazilian Stock Car Pro from Velocita. Not quite as much, but still plenty. So leave your thoughts down below. What was your race of the weekend? Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.